Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'm going to be covering the weather for July 1st of 2023. Currently there is a slight risk set up for the southern Texas Panhandle, as well as a marginal threat extending into western Oklahoma and eastern New Mexico. We've been seeing a lot of severe weather potential for this area because of that low pressure system situated somewhere around here, as well as a marginal threat for eastern Wyoming and a little bit of South Dakota and Nebraska. As for our threats, we do have a 5% tornado potential on a 2% into New Mexico and Oklahoma. As for our winds threat, we do have a 15% on a 5%, as well as a 5% further up north. As for our hail threat, we do have a significant threat on that 15% on the 5%, which is again extending into New Mexico and Oklahoma, as well as a 5% hail threat for further up north. Before I continue, I would like to mention that there has been a little bit of uncertainty with today's forecast, as well as with the SPC, because of residual storms left over in Texas, which could be affecting the severe weather potential in some way. So there's been a little bit of uncertainty, so keep that in mind going forward. Taking a look at our pivotal weather models, starting off with our 500 millibars as we usually do. First, I would like to notice that there is a pretty huge high pressure system ridge situated across much of the eastern United States. However, it does seem to be a little bit weak and triggering a little bit of spotty showers in some areas. I'm not sure why it is triggering some spotty showers in some areas. All I know is that it is, as well as a little bit of spotty showers because of this low pressure system, which is beginning cyclone genesis, likely going to settle into the Rockies by tomorrow and rotate and trigger rain showers to the north and to the east, as well as severe weather to its south. However, increasing mid-level flow is going to allow for the potential of some increasing wind shear over the next few days, and you can see that low pressure system settle in by Friday, but again, this increasing mid-level flow is going to allow for increasing wind shear, as well as a tornado potential going into the next few days. Something that you might have noticed is this low pressure system currently situated in the Gulf of Mexico, heading towards Cuba. This is potentially going to be our first named storm of the hurricane season. It does have a 50% currently issued by the SPC for it to develop into a named tropical system and move south towards Cuba. It could potentially turn its way back north, but I'll likely focus on it towards the end of the video. Taking a look at the 700 millibars map, I'm not really sure about this one all that much. There is a little bit of uncertainty, but it does look like there could potentially be a shortwave trough moving through the area on the 700 millibars. However, these darker colors could just potentially be strong damaging winds left over from storms. But it could definitely be a shortwave trough moving through the area. This could potentially trigger the potential for some stronger low-level wind shear, as well as overall help trigger the severe weather development. As for the trigger for the marginal threat further up north, it is likely going to be more lead troughing than any low-level trough moving through the area. And without strong mid-level or low-level winds, it is likely not going to have all that much of a tornado potential. I also probably won't cover that marginal threat all that much, and most likely just focus on the southern slight risk for today. Taking a look at our dew points, that high pressure system situated over much of the eastern United States is triggering strong southeasterly flow out of the Gulf of Mexico and increasing our moisture across much of the Midwest, as well as much of the United States as a whole. These dew points compared to yesterday are potentially stronger, with dew points in the mid-60s and upper 50s compared to dew points that are mostly in the mid-50s to upper to lower 60s. This is potentially going to allow for some more stronger moderate CAPE compared to yesterday, with CAPE values mostly in the 1000s to 2000s and 50s, and possibly to the upper 2000s. Not going to be too much of a crazy increase compared to tomorrow, but definitely somewhat of an increase with whatever lapse rates we have. Taking a look at lapse rates, we do have lapse rates that mostly fluctuate between the low 8s and 7s, but mostly staying around the 6s and 7s. if lapse rates were higher, we could potentially allow for stronger instability with the mid 60 dew points. But because of weaker lapse rates, Cape values are mostly going to stay around the moderates to potentially the upper moderates. If lapse rates were higher, say in the mostly the 8s and potentially the weaker 9s, we could potentially see Cape values that do reach the 3000s, but that is going to be unlikely because of how weak lapse rates are. Again, keeping Cape values mostly in the 1000s to 2050 range, but increased dew points could potentially, again, allow for stronger Cape values compared to yesterday, but again, not so much of an increase compared to yesterday. Taking a look at our instability, going to right before storms begin to develop, you can see that Cape values are mostly in the 1000s to 2050 range, potentially getting higher to the 2060s and potentially the 2070s, but that's probably as high as it's going to go. There are some simulated values that are reaching the 3000s, but I do not think that is likely. I think that's a little high because of the weaker lapse rates and mid 60 dew points. I think 3000s are going to be unlikely, mostly going to stay around again the 1000s to upper 2000s range as possible. These Cape values are going to allow for the potential for some large hail as well as some damaging winds, and these Cape values do check out with whatever wind shear we have for some tornadic development, but again, mostly staying around the 5% range because of how moderate these Cape values are. Taking a look at wind shear, we're currently situated right around storms begin to develop. Keep in mind uncertainty that we've had for today. You can see that along outflow boundaries, wind shear does look sufficient enough for some tornadic development. I'm not entirely sure if storms are going to be mostly outflow driven or inflow driven. There is some, again, uncertainty, so I'm not really sure if this wind shear is going to be usable for some tornadic development, but it does appear that it is going to be used for tornadic development based on the 5% around this time, around this area. So this wind shear definitely does look sufficient enough for some tornadic development, as well as with the Cape that we have, 5% does look feasible for today. And then taking a look at the surface instability, or the 3 kilometer Cape, I haven't really been covering the 3 kilometer Cape as much as I have in previous videos, mostly because I've had some uncertainty with it. I'm not really sure if it checks out to be all that good for forecasting, if it's going to help see through potentially uncertain tornado potentials, or if it has a very weak influence on our forecast. So I'm not really sure. I've had a little bit of back and forth with it, but I'm going to look at it just in case it does have some influence, which it does look like it possibly does, because around the 5% area, you can see some deep pinks and some deep reds for that 5%, around that 5% tornado potential, which could mean that it does affect the tornado potential just a little bit. So again, I've had some uncertainty with it, and if it does have some forecasting potential, I will look at it some more. But overall, this could just be only triggering the potential for some large hail to develop, which it could still be influencing that, as well as some strong damaging winds, but it could also influence the tornado potential a little bit. Let's then take a look at the disturbance in the Gulf for a second. So currently this tropical disturbance does have a 70% chance of developing into probably a depression or a tropical storm. I haven't really focused on tropical weather all that much, so this is kind of new to me. It does, again, look like it is moving towards Cuba a little bit. So if it's going to develop, it's likely going to impact Cuba and not really going to do a whole lot of stuff to the United States. The most it's going to do to the United States, I think, is going to eject some rain showers and some severe weather along the Florida coast. In the Florida Peninsula. I don't think it's going to do a whole lot to the United States, probably mainly impact Cuba, but this is definitely something to watch out for. So hopefully we will see a little bit more by tomorrow. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials of Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator, or if you just want to hang out, do whatever. The Project Gladiator Discord is perfect for that. If it's perfect if you want to talk about just weather topics or ongoing events or anything weather related, you can head on down to the Discord. Or you can check out the website, and hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.